So, welcome to the Rewind the Movies podcast. I'm Andrew Owen. I'm joined by James Progolage, aka Prog, and Evan Quick. This week we decided to go back in time and look at Beetlejuice. It's one of the films I watched growing up. It's definitely a little bit different, especially as like an 8 or 9 year old watching the film. It's definitely a little bit different to what we would have normally watched. Guys, did you watch it? As a film growing up?
Yeah. For some reason, this film it always reminds us of the really thick video cassette cases that you used to get from the video shop. I don't know why. It's just that was the first thing when you said we were doing the film. The first thing I thought was massive case.
Are you on about the ones that they're like.
It's like a hardback book.
Yeah, they're plastic, but also at the same time there's a bit of space. There's a bit of air in between them.
Oh no! These were like proper thick. They're almost like plastic bricks sort of thing. So yeah,
it must have been a northern thing.
It wasn't one that it wasn't the one that sort of opened on one side. It was one you open in the middle.
Yeah, it was in the middle. It was just like.
I remember. What about you, Prog? Did you was it one of the films that you would have watched growing up?
Well, yeah, really impressionable film on a young James Progolage. This was the cause of my first grounding when I was growing up.
In what sense?
There's just the scene where, and we're obviously taking it that everyone who's listening has watched this. So there's a scene where he kicks down the model tree. Grabs his crotch and he says, "Nice fucking model."
It's in my notes to talk about, but I love that scene. When I think about Beetlejuice, that's all I ever think about is you're dealing with a professional here. Nice fucking model, honk honk.
Yeah. Well, I was 11 years old and I watched this film, and me and my brother were repeating that line over and over in my bedroom, and my parents heard me. And my father went nuts.
Which I'll jump straight in actually on. We normally ask 5 different questions, and they're the same questions each week. And the first question is around what does a film mean to you? And for me, Beetlejuice is a funny film because I growing up, I never really knew should I be watching it or not, because In the UK, at the time, it had a 15 rating, but it was also billed as a bit of a family film. So it was sort of like
a family. How do they class it as a family film?
I think
I can see perhaps where you're coming from in terms of the sort of like fantastical elements that Tim Burton is known for. But the content is far from family.
That's what I'm saying. It's definitely not. In the US, it was a PG. And you think about the content and the language that's in it at times.
Yeah.
There's also, it introduces you to the goth culture with Winona Ryder's character, and at one point she's writing a suicide letter.
Yeah.
It's dark. It's really, really dark.
Yeah.
And for me, like I said, growing up, I was torn between whether it was a family film or whether it was a horror, and I definitely fell on the side of it being a horror. And I thought at times it was quite scary to watch.
Well, it's described as a fantasy comedy.
And it's funny because, when we do this podcast, I normally go back and do a little bit of research on what the film was and what they were hoping for. And, it was down to be a straight comedy. There was not comedy, horror. There was no comical side of it at all. And I don't know if that was pre-Burton or whether Burton had those ideas as well. But, it was going to be a very different film. Let's put it that way. It's, and some of the characters, or some of the leads that they were looking to play Beetlejuice. I don't know if you guys know about any of this, but Sammy Davis Jr. was billed at one point.
What?
To be Beetlejuice. And that's mad. And another name banded around was Dudley Moore. And you just think it would have been a very, very different film if those two had.
Well, Dudley Moore, it's not anything other than a comedy, is it?
Yeah. no,
Yeah.
Like,
exactly.
as much as I like Dudley Moore, I don't think he's got a lot of range.
Yeah.
I think the good thing with Michael Keaton is that he's got the how would you say, he's got the look in his eyes, isn't he? That he could sort of go at any moment.
But the funny thing with it is, not Burton, Keaton was known for his like straight up comedy.
Yeah.
He came from I don't know what it was, a TV program in America, and he came from that. And it was that was a straight comedy. So to take a step into he's I didn't even know how to describe his style as Beetlejuice. I was going to say it was gritty. It's not gritty at all. It's I can't even put a word to it.
It's I don't know. I sort of likened it to almost like a used car salesman sort of thing.
There's definitely that element to it, isn't it?
Yeah.
But if we want to just touch on like Burton's style for a while, we are known to Burton we are known of Burton now these days because he's done all these films. But back in the day, this was his first major feature film. I'm not going to.
I think hadn't he done Pee-wee's Big Adventure?
Well, yeah, but a little bit different to this, but to then come across this and again, I've done my research on it because I was trying to like put a term to what his style is, and it's difficult to put in one word. But he gets a lot of his influences from the German expressionist cinema, and I have to look that up. I'm not enough of a film buff to sort of know that, but they're very much the use of shadows, angular sets, brooding and mysterious type characters. And in this case, you've got Winona Ryder's sort of gothic character. It's for me again as a 9, 10, 11-year-old boy watching this, it blew my mind because it was very different to what else was out there.
Yeah, but I would add to that by saying no one else could have done this film in this way other than Tim Burton. If you put any other director in on the film, it's a completely different film.
Yeah.
His style and tone and creativity, as it were, visual creativity, I don't think there's no one else like him. I know you say he's influenced by German expressionism, and you can see that with certain films back in the 20s and 30s. But in terms of major pictures from America, there's no one else like Tim Burton. Even today, even though he hasn't done, you could argue, a really great film for, say, 10, 15 years, he's still got that visual flair and creativity with his filmmaking. The other thing I would add as well is that his style or his visual style does lend itself almost to not providing comedy, but it lessens the harsh edges that the film could have had.
Yeah. Well, ultimately, the film is about death, isn't it?
Yeah.
And the argument is, if you didn't have Burton's style of cinematography, whatever the style of directing is, you may not have films which use the subject of death but use it in a more friendly way. So a really good example being Coco. If you didn't have Burton, would you have had a film like Coco, or would there have been another director that would have been able to bring that through? So yeah, I tell you, right, one scene that sums it all up for me, right? At the very beginning of the film, you meet Barbara and Adam. Is it Adam, the guy's name? I think.
Yes,
Yeah,
I think so. Yeah.
Anyway, they drive into the town. They pick up whatever supplies they need from the store, and then they come back, and then they crash. And they swerve around the dog, and they crash out to the bridge. But just before they crash over the bridge, the dog comes along and he's standing on the plank, and it's his weight that's the pivot.
Yeah.
That'll stop them from pivot over. And it's really light-hearted. So then he jumps off, and all of a sudden they fall in the water and they're dead. And that's quite it's a hard-hitting topic, but it's done quite light-heartedly with this like dogs like.
We'll come back to this scene,
All right.
because I've got this scene. But I will add to what you're saying. In terms of if you look at the cut from when they land in the water, the next scene is straight into the house where they're soaking wet. There's no sort of anyone or family mourning for them.
No.
There's no funeral. You're completely in the protagonist's point of view.
Yeah, because the funeral that they have is them, on the model town.
Yeah.
Adam's making up the funeral itself. And the funny thing from all that is, and that's a really good point, bro. For the audience, it's instant that it's them going into the house, but for them, a period of time has passed. Isn't it something like 4 months or something? I'm sure they say at one point in the film.
No, I'm not sure how long they never mention how long it is between them dying and them getting back to the house. The length of time they mention is them first going to the netherworld.
Right,
in the waiting room,
and
they arrive back in their house, and I think 3 months has passed. It's redecorated, isn't it?
But there must have been a funeral of some sort, because if in one of the first scenes in the attic, he looks out the window and he's like, "Hey Jane, up here," and like both the real estate woman and her daughter are all dressed in black and everything. So
that's probably the wedding day, yeah. Sorry, the funeral day.
Yeah.
So, what's your favourite aspect of the film? Who wants to answer first?
I'll go then. I think for me, I think it's shown that the person that gets ignored, i.e. Lydia, is sort of the more special one of the film, because she's the only one that can see them. And everyone ignores her. She's just kept, almost like, should be seen and not heard, and no one cares what how she is. But if they would listen to her, then everything could be different.
Are you saying your favorite aspect is the message, or is it?
Yeah, I think it's just a case of that. It's that I don't know. Maybe I'm looking into it too much, but so the people who are ignored, or the misfits or whatever, they're deemed as the special ones, which I thought.
It comes through in the film that they're ignored, but they're able to point out.
Well, yeah, and they've. It's like everyone's got some quality about them, even like the sort of the misfits of the world, so to speak.
Okay, I didn't think you were going there.
I have a bit of an issue with the character that she plays, and I'm not entirely sure if it's Winona Ryder the way she's playing it, or whether it's the character. But I know she had plaudits for the way that she played it. But she went on to then play. Was it Heathers was the next film that she did, and things.
Well, it came out the same year.
Yeah. So and she was quite well received for that as well. I don't know. I just have an issue with the whole broodiness of that character.
Is it because you've seen her so many times?
Maybe. Do you know what? Do you know what I think it is? Bear with me on this one, right? So, Winona Ryder's character is this brooding misfit of a teenager, can't find her way in life. But the impression that I get that she's longing for attention from her parents, right? So her mum has died. We don't know when she died or how she died. And she's got a stepmother who's so self-absorbed that she doesn't really realise that she's there. You've got a dad it's implied that he's had some sort of breakdown because of a high-pressure job. So again, he might not know that she's there. So then she meets these ghosts, and all of a sudden she latches onto them like they're the parents that she never had. And flip it on to the other way round. Barbara and Adam, it's implied that they never had children for a particular reason, and all of a sudden she's like the child that they never had. So fast forward to the end of the film, and this is what I'm getting to. all of a sudden, she's this outgoing person, all of a sudden, who's going to school and getting good grades and things, and she's, cycling to school. And I suppose that's the issue I have with the character, is the total flip. That she's gone from this brooding person to this, all of a sudden, so-called normal teenager.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. It's almost the change that she goes through at the end it's not deserved with what happens prior. There's not enough that happens prior to warrant her complete reversal of character almost.
Yeah, no, exactly. 100% agree.
Yeah.
Well, apart from the fact that she almost married, she was the child bride of some demon ghost or whatever.
It's ironic, really, because she also plays a child bride in the film Great Balls of Fire, where Jerry Lee Lewis marries his cousin.
I was gonna say, was she in that as soon as you said it? Yeah, because he married his first cousin or whatever it was. Comes around, eh? Comes around.
You could have argued she might have got typecast off that.
Maybe she did. But she did play a lot of these sort of like misunderstood characters at some points. But she did play them very well, and she early 90s and mid 90s she was a very good actress and the actress to go to for some roles, and then obviously died away for whatever reasons. Brog, what's your favourite aspect of the film?
Okay, so we're obviously going to talk about favourite scene next, so I'll pick I'm going to go for Danny Elfman.
All right, so the score, yeah.
Yeah, it's not just this score though. I think the music he wrote for this film, it lends itself to the sort of the comedic nature that Tim Burton is obviously going for. I know we've touched on it. It delves into horror at certain points, but I think the overriding genre is comedy, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
There's too many jokes and lines for it to be anything other than that. But I think Danny Elfman, his score definitely lends itself to promoting the comedic aspect. But also, I like the fact that Tim Burton and Danny Elfman struck up a relationship. Obviously, it was from Pee-wee's Big Adventure first, then they went to this, but they just carried on for a number of films. And every time Danny Elfman did a score for Tim Burton, it just seemed to fit. It seemed like Danny Elfman was the perfect match for Tim Burton's style. And I always like it when that happens between a filmmaker and a composer. The perfect example is Steven Spielberg and John Williams. Yeah. Every time Steven Spielberg does a film, you're going to get a great John Williams score. I feel that way about a Tim Burton film. I know I'm going to get a for the most part anyway, I know I'm going to get a really good Danny Elfman score. And I thought that was the same here.
Interesting fact about it. Do you know, obviously they used the song by Harry Belafonte, what's it called? Jumping Line or whatever it's called. In the opening scene, they use that song, and it's actually sung by Danny Elfman.
Yeah, he's got a great voice. He's the voice of Jack Pumpkinhead, I think, is it? Is he the singing voice of Jack Pumpkinhead in
Jack Skellington?
Oh, sorry, Jack Skellington in Nightmare Before Christmas. Yeah.
Well, and so I'm assuming then, and I think I know the answer to this, but he did the score to Batman as well.
Yeah, the first two.
Oh.
I'd say the first two, the Michael Keaton two.
Well, the Tim Burton two.
Yeah.
The main two.
They're classic. And that's a podcast for another day, maybe.
Yeah.
So, with regards to my favourite aspect, and it's a performance, and that's Keaton.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought one of you were going to go
Yeah.
for that. So
Look, it's brilliant considering that he was. We mentioned already that they were already thinking about other types of people to play it, and he was relatively late being cast to the point where, do you know the snake with the scene with the snake?
stairs.
Yeah, on the stairs. Well, that was shot and produced and made or whatever because it's a stock animation. Most of that was made before Keaton was in place, so they had to go back and reshoot the bits with the face. Another reason they reshot it is because the snake didn't really mean anything. Um, they thought that audience would have seen the snake and not necessarily put two and two together that it was Beetlejuice doing it. So that's why they put the Beetlejuice face on there. But Keaton is brilliant in it, and surprisingly enough, he's hardly in the film.
I was gonna mention that.
Yeah.
I think if you totaled it up, he's probably not even in it for 20 minutes.
I can tell you exactly what he's in there for. He's in there for 18 minutes.
18, what, of an hour and a half film?
And also, apart from, there is a scene, but you don't see him quite early on, where he's looking through the
the paper.
For a job. Apart from that scene, right, you don't meet him for 25 minutes of the film.
Yeah.
And then when he comes on, it's brilliant. And I remember, right, the character used to gross me out when I was a kid because he's there and he's got skin is all horrible, his hair is everywhere. He does that scene where he attracts a fly nearby and then he grabs the fly and then he obviously eats it or what have you. But Keaton, the way that he delivers some of the lines are iconic. And we've mentioned one already, the nice fucking model. It's, you come away from the film, and as a kid, Prog said he did it already. You just say in the lines that are in the film, and it is iconic. And surprisingly enough, he was in the film even less because they didn't produce the last scene until after filming had ended. So do you know where his head gets shrunk? Actually, it's the picture behind Evan's head at the moment. That scene was done post-production.
Oh, okay.
So they had to bring him back. And also, yes, you can tell I've done my bloody research on this. Keaton did all of his filming within a 2-week period.
I wouldn't mind betting that he came up, some of the lines. I wouldn't mind betting because he's comedy background that he ad-libbed some of them.
Yeah.
Well, I go along with you though. I think he's 100 miles an hour through the entire film. There's not one scene that he's in where he's not on the front foot. Well, it's what I would call aggressive acting, but in a good way. Like when Nicolas Cage is good.
Yeah. Well, Nicolas Cage is definitely a topic for another day. But I get what you mean. So originally, right, now I mentioned earlier that the film was going to be a straight up horror, and it was going to be Beetlejuice in 2 different forms. It was going to be a winged demon, or when he had his human form, he was going to be a Middle Eastern guy. Don't ask me where the thinking is behind that. But he takes a character, which in theory, right, because the character was originally going to be a murderer and a rapist, I should say.
That was his background.
Yeah, that's what it was going to be originally, and then obviously they flipped it totally because you don't actually know why how he is, apart from he used to be the assistant to the councillor or whatever her name is. But yeah, again, it just comes back to the way he delivers it, the way that he's hardly on camera, but still comes away with the standout performance for me.
Yeah, on the subject of acting though, I think everyone in the film is really good. I don't think there's one poor performance. I know you had some doubts about Winona Ryder, but whether that was her or whether that was the character, but I think the supporting cast is superb.
Yeah, no, Winona Ryder, I think, delivers well what she does. I think it's more the character, the more we go into. Yeah. And I've got another. Actually, do you mind if we jump on to the next topic and I can tell you about the things that I would change about the film, because it leads quite well into it, and that's the Otho character, or whatever his name is.
Oh, Otho.
Really?
Yeah, I absolutely despise that character. I don't see. Don't get me wrong, right? The guy who plays him, I think he plays him well, but I just don't see the point in the character. I'm jumping back to, I think he plays him well. I also think because he's the same guy from Demolition Man, isn't he?
Associate Bob.
Yeah, Associate Bob. Yeah, and anyway, different film for a different day. But I just don't get that character, because you've got the mum, right, or the stepmum, and she's this, like I said earlier, self-absorbed character who's really only, is interested in what she can produce and what people then think about her, and so on and so forth. And then, yeah, I don't know, maybe I'm missing something. I just don't get it. It bugged the shit out of me when I was younger, and I watched it the other day, and it still bugged me. I thought I would maybe understand the character at all, and maybe I'm missing something, but no, it just doesn't do it for me.
Well, I think if you're going to be real skeptical about it, then he's probably only there as a plot device for the ending.
Yeah, I get that bit, because he's the one who finds the book and reads it. But my thinking is, why did you need that character? Why couldn't it have just been the stepmom that did a lot of what he did?
Yeah, maybe, but I quite like the Otho character. I found him quite funny.
And do you know what really, the other thing, and maybe this is what really pisses me off, is that typical sort of 80s yuppie style of,
didn't you have red bloody shoes in one scene?
Oh, maybe, but it's that garish use of colour and shapes and things. And then the bit pisses me off most, the outdoor room with the one wall. I just don't get it. What's it about?
I mean, if we got to break down this character, that the way he treats his date is atrocious, because he says something about a desperate suicide attempt when they're having dinner. I know it's played for comedy, and I did actually find it quite funny, because she's obviously very sarcastic back to him, so it's tit for tat.
I don't know what, I didn't get that they were a date or a couple.
No, I know.
What I mean, I don't get it, is I didn't realise it until you said that they were.
Oh, right, okay.
Because she is so dry in her response to things.
Yeah,
it is quite good.
And it's funny, I didn't get as well that it's when he's talking about the desperate suicide attempt, he goes on to say, you know what they say about people who commit suicide, and he said in the afterlife they become civil servants. And if you notice, when they go to the waiting room, the woman working behind the counter actually committed suicide.
Yeah, she took the rest, didn't she?
Yeah.
Good point.
I know, I didn't know that.
Yeah. No, that's a good one. Didn't think that. Ev, what would you change about it, mate?
I don't know. I'd probably have just more of Michael Keaton, really, to be honest. That's probably it. Really.
Playing devil's advocate, you could say that you think he's so good because he's only on the screen for a certain amount of time, and every time he's on there, he's amazing. So you come out there thinking, you'd rather want more than say, I would have had less Michael Keaton. But I agree with you. I would have wanted more Michael Keaton.
Yeah, it's the Darth Maul gambit, though, isn't it? It's just basically you want more Darth. You want more Darth Maul, apart from like the 12 minutes or something he's in the film.
More Darth Maul and less floppy-eared prick. Although if you remove Andrew's comments, I don't personally think there's a Jar Jar Binks in Beetlejuice. He would think that Otho is Jar Jar Binks.
I maybe it's just he riles me too much because of the type of character he is. Anyway, Prague, what would you change, mate?
Right, well, there's something I definitely changed, but I just want to point something out. something I didn't get to say at the start when we were talking about what the film, memories of the film, or what it means to us, or whatever. But I've always had, and I didn't realise this until I watched the film again today, I've always had a thing about my neck being exposed. And I realised it's from Juno, the caseworker.
Oh, yeah, because, yeah.
That slit throat. And when I saw it again, I realised that I've picked up this thing about having, my neck exposed from when I was younger watching that film. If you ever see me, like, sometimes I'll sit like this because I get this overriding feeling that my neck is too sort of stretched out, and it's a weird sort of phobia thing. But I just wanted to highlight that. But the thing I changed.
We can see your neck now. You realise that, don't you?
Yeah, I know. Yeah. But the aspect of the film I change, if I could, is how they die.
Okay.
I hate how they die. There's certain elements I quite like. You mentioned the dog on the balance in the beam.
Yeah.
I obviously that's a comedic element. I don't mind that. That's fine. What I hate is when people in films die because they don't run over the animal. There's an animal in the road. The worst thing you can do is avoid it. Unless it's an elephant or a rhino or something that's going to, dismantle your car. You run the animal over. As bad as it is to say, you run the animal over because God knows what else can happen. Well, in this instance, they died. They went off a bridge. The other thing about that scene as well, how deep is that river that they went into? I'm sure it was like 2 foot, but they didn't drown.
No, the car sort of hits it quite high up, doesn't it? Thinking about it now, right? That dog's a right little shit, isn't it? Because first of all, it's walking in the middle of the road. So the car's got to avoid it, and then it's like, I'm gonna have these fuckers now, and jump in this little plank. And then he may as well give him the middle finger as he jumps off.
Don't get me wrong, right? I can't really offer any, in terms of the setting of the film, I can't offer any good alternative to how they might die because it's a quaint village, nice weather. All they've got is that bridge really as a that could be somewhat treacherous. But it's an aspect of films and story and real life actually that does get to me.
Maybe they could have had Jane, like the estate agent, just like murder them for the sale of the house.
Oh, you're going dark there, but that would have been.
I reckon she planted the dog.
Maybe it was Jane's dog.
Yeah, maybe.
Give him the middle finger as he walks away.
Maybe if you go back through the film and you see the scenes of them in town, you can see Jane walking the dog and just letting the dog go.
Yeah. She just stands at the end of the bridge, just going.
Yeah.
She's gone through the bridge, putting down treats all the way through in the middle, and then releases the dog at the last minute.
Bit of bonio off the plank.
Go on, favorite scene.
I've got two. I've got this one, okay. And the introduction. I just find it really funny. First off, when he starts feeling up the legs of the woman, and then
we're in there for those who might be listening to the podcast rather than watching the podcast.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah.
We're on about the waiting room scene at the end of the film.
Yeah, the waiting room scene with Beetlejuice waiting to see the caseworker, and it's just when he starts trying to feel up the sort of the severed legs, as it were, that then he gets hit by the upper body of the woman, and then goes over to the other two, and just how he tries to swap the tickets because he sees like he's got like 999 million and one or whatever, and the bloke next to him's got 4. It's like, there goes Elvis, yo king.
Well, it just goes to show that doing something bad never pays, because
know.
he does something bad to the girl by feeling her up. She slaps him. He does
Yeah.
something bad to the tribesman,
Yeah.
and he gets his head shrunk.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, the legs that he feels up are Tim Burton's girlfriend at the time.
Really?
Yeah. So interesting fact for you anyway.
Yeah.
So he touches up the girlfriend of the director.
And I think the introduction of Beetlejuice for me just cracks me up every time. Just for the fact that it is a proper used car salesman. It's just like, look, you want this, I want to help you do this. Let's strike a deal, and then he's trying it on with the wife, and then wanting to invite them in for Italian food and stuff like that. It's just
Well, interestingly enough, that is my favourite scene, because so much happens in that scene from the moment you meet him to the part where he kicks over the tree and he grabs his crotch. And it goes through so much, and it's fast-paced, and yeah, he is like a car salesman. And there's that bit where he jumps on Adam's back and all of a sudden he's dressed like him.
Oh, yeah.
It is brilliant. But it is quite dark as well, because it's got sexual reference in it, in the sense of I don't know if that film you could potentially do the scene the same today as you could maybe back then, in the sense of he's picking up a skirt to look underneath.
Yeah.
But I think you could do the scene today, but it'd have different. The implications would be different. Yeah. Back then, the scene or the groping or the kissing or lifting the skirt were done for laughs. Still, you can still do the scene that way, but it wouldn't be done for laughs. It would just go to show how much of a creep he is.
Yeah.
And the fact, at the end of it, he grabs his crotch and he's going onk onk. Again, as a child, you don't know what that means.
No. But then it's
you're copying it.
Yeah, and obviously it reference when like the Dante's Inferno building gets built in the model later on in the film.
Yeah.
Is that the girls?
Yeah.
Building, yeah. I didn't realise until I watched it again today that Juno, the caseworker, put that building in.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know.
Yeah, Beetlejuice. I used to when I was a kid, I thought that Beetlejuice magicked it up because he was talking about not being laid in 600 years. But it was actually when the couple go to see Juno after that, she says about creating that building, get Beetlejuice out of the picture.
Ah, right. Okay, I didn't catch that bit. It's funny, right? Because there's lots of Beetlejuice that I don't remember as a kid, and it's for one simple reason. And we discussed this previously. When you watch a film from TV, or you record it from TV, and you used to watch as a kid, it would cut certain bits out. And Nice Fucking Model Onk Onk was definitely one of the scenes that was cut. I always remember it just being, you're working with a professional here. And then sometimes it would just cut at that. And it wasn't until I saw probably a rental copy or what have you that I remember it. But for me, like, I agree with you, Ev. It's up there for me. It's definitely one of them. Frog, do you have a favourite scene?
Yeah, I'm surprised none of us are picking it, but I do want to give a shout out to the dinner scene. I'd forgotten how funny that was. And and what I loved about it as well, rewatching it again, was Winona Ryder is absolutely pissing herself in the corner of the room.
Yeah.
You can't keep a straight face.
My dancing style, I've just adopted that throughout the years, just gone.
Yeah. But my favourite scene is the marriage scene.
Okay.
Where Beetlejuice is to wed Lydia. Now, the reason I'm picking this scene is because, as you said, with Beetlejuice's introduction to Alec Baldwin and Gina Davis's characters, it's 100 mile an hour, non-stop, gag after gag. That's in the start to middle of film where you expect comedy to be, at its height, at its peak. Yeah, the comedy should just be rolling. If you notice with a lot of, or the majority of comedy films, the actual comedy suffers in the last third because they're always trying to tie up the loose ends or to complete the arc of the story. But the marriage scene at the end of Beetlejuice has got as many gags in it as the scenes that have gone before it. I'd argue there's more gags in the marriage scene. I mean, the amount of lines that Michael Keaton comes out with when he's trying to stop people saying Beetlejuice. The other thing I laughed at, which I didn't realise, which I didn't notice before, was when he gets the wedding ring, it's on someone else's finger.
She meant nothing to me. Nothing at all.
She meant nothing to me. It's like every 10 seconds, there's a line or something happening that's funny in that scene. And I think for a comedy film to keep up the amount of comedy going into the final 10 minutes, I think that's a great effort.
Yeah. No, it is good. And I've forgotten how, he changes sort of the background and everything to the film, the scene, where, the minister or whatever he comes out to the fireplace, which alters into this doorway. It is it's a well put together scene, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. So moving on to the final topic then, sort of twofold. Would you recommend the film, and does it still stand the test of time?
I'll go first.
Yeah, go on.
I'd absolutely recommend the film. In fact, I think this film is better than what I remember it. I just mentioned about the amount of comedy that is maintained through the film. But also, I think the performances are great. Everyone is good in it. Our debate about Andrew's favourite character, and Andrew's version of Jar Jar Binks aside. I love the film. I think it's better than I remember it, and I would definitely recommend it.
Yeah, I would recommend it, but I'm not sure whether it would be well received today. I don't know why. I think it just.
You think it's dated?
Well, slightly, but I don't know. I mean, it.
You see in one way, or can you?
Well, it's. I'm just trying to get my words out. It's basically, I think you'd struggle to appeal to a certain demographic that it wouldn't know who it's catering for, whether it's going to be like, say, it's, I don't know, 11 to 16-year-olds or 18 plus or whatever like that, because I think comedies nowadays are much different to this sort of film.
And I agree with you on this, Ev, and it was going to be my point. I love the film. I think it was really well made, definitely for the time. There's definitely an element of nostalgia for me. I just don't know whether it would be well received today. Which brings me on to the fact that they've tried to do a sequel for the last 30 years on this. And do you guys know anything about the sequel?
I know that they've tried to make one, and it's
so originally, right? They were Winona Ryder and Keaton agreed that they would both star in a sequel straight away, as long as Tim Burton came back to do it. And it was going to be working title of Beetlejuice Goes Hawaiian. So it's basically the Dietz family move into Hawaii, where Charles is developing a resort, but the resort is built on ancient burial grounds.
Okay.
So then the ghosts bring in Beetlejuice to try and get rid of the family. That was the premise of the film. And if you look this up online, right, so many people slate it because I think they just can't see that Hawaiian Beetlejuice connection. And supposedly within the script, Beetlejuice wins like a surf competition or something. I don't know how true that is. But anyway, that idea floated around for a while in the 90s. It then sort of passed because it felt that what's her name? Winona Ryder's character, she would have been too old to play. But if you look on IMDb now, there's a Beetlejuice 2 page. It's not in production, but whatever they would have before.
Yeah.
And I just think if they made a sequel now, it would be very different, or they would have to pitch it slightly differently as well.
I think if there was a sequel now, the logical journey would be based on Lydia's character getting old and dying. Got to call him Beetlejuice. That's how I would
You
think.
should be writing this, Brock. Jesus. Let's send in a script.
But I just want to counter you boys saying that you don't know if you'd find a market nowadays. I think it would. I think you just got to market it differently to how you would in the 80s. I wouldn't market it for kids. I think if the last sort of 5 to 10 years have shown anything, it's that you can have adult comedies, you can have R-rated comedies. So I think you could market this film that way. In fact, you could even add more humour or adult humour. So
you're going down the route of like a Deadpool.
Yeah.
Type of, I know Deadpool isn't horror, but it's
X-rated. You mean?
It's X-rated. It took a genre to somewhere where it probably hadn't been before. Not mainstream anyway.
Yeah, I mean, if I was going to say to someone you should watch Beetlejuice, I wouldn't be saying to a 14 or 15-year-old watch Beetlejuice.
No.
No, I agree with that. I would be saying to someone possibly our age, if you've never seen it, watch it, and for me, watch it for the performances, not the characters.
I just think if you like comedy, why wouldn't you watch it?
Yeah. So one last point for me, right? And I don't, because you two will know this, but I love my retro games, and there was a Beetlejuice out on the Nintendo, and I don't know if you guys ever played this. Yeah, right.
No.
It was the worst game I've ever played on the NES. It was shocking. Basically,
I'm glad you said on the NES because I was just about to throw ET at you.
No. I was a Nintendo Entertainment System guy, and I remember playing this. I never owned it, so I must have rented it or something. But it is shocking. So you play as Beetlejuice, and Beetlejuice has 2 modes of attack. One of them is to jump on your enemy, and the second one then is to kick it while you've jumped on it and stunned it. And the premise, and it's so difficult. When back in the day games were hard, well, this is shockingly hard, and I'm not even going to say any more on it. So basically, watch the film, don't play the game, is my advice.
What about the animated series? Do you remember anything about that?
I do, actually. I quite enjoyed it.
Oh, I forgot about that.
There wasn't much of that made, though, was there?
No, I think I'm just having a look now. It ran from 89 to 91, and there were 4 seasons, 94 episodes.
Oh, wow. So
Jesus.
Quite a few then.
Bet Arthur wasn't in that.
I think he was. I'm pretty sure he might have been in that.
Who's that?
Arthur
character.
I don't know. I can try and have a look.
Didn't know back in the day, like late 80s, early 90s, they churned out cartoons, and the animators became quite lazy on some of them. And a really good example is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, where there's scenes where like their bandanas disappear, or there's 2 Raphaels in the same scene, or something like that.
Animated series update. I can't see Ortho in the character list, so it doesn't look like he's in it.
Oh.
I thought he was, but if they'd had any sense, they would have got rid of him.
Poor show.
You've got the Deets, and you've got Beetlejuice. I can't even see that
Barbara and Adam.
Yeah, I can't even see that they're in there.
Anyway, right then, guys, let's wrap this up. It's I think it's a bit of a resounding. Yes, we love this film, and yes, we enjoyed watching it again. So yeah, it's a cracking one. So anyway, guys, hope you enjoyed. We'll hopefully do some more of these podcasts in the future. Catch you all soon. Ta-ra.